Thank you so much, Ashley, and thanks everyone for having me. I'm just sharing my slide. I just want to be sure everybody is able to see my slide.
Looks good.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, all right. I will not be able to see the screen, so in case there are any questions, we'll keep it towards the end. Good morning, everyone. As Ashley introduced, my name is Vinay. I'm actually the founder of Verdnt, which was previously known as Kheti Buddy. And today I'm going to walk you through at least the heading sounds complicated, carbon accounting in agriculture, but I promise to keep it very simple. And more importantly, I want to actually show you, talk about the study, why we did the study, what we actually tested, and what we proved. I think before I start, I definitely need to thank two organizations. I can see Nicole is there from Vineland, and if Rob is there from OCI, Rob and Michael. Without their support, this study would have not been possible. We got a grant from OCI TAP project, and Vineland was gracious enough to actually open up their farms for the testing of our model, and that's why we are. So I'll probably back up and just give a quick introduction about our organization and what we are trying to achieve. What we see in agribusiness, and this is based on the last 5 years of experience. We started Verdant back in India, and I moved to Canada early 2024. Is not lack of data, but a lot of data. Data from farm management, data from sensors, data from robotics, supply chain, ERP, and the key challenge which agribusinesses today face is actually integrating it. What I call it is actually a data hairball problem where none of this data talk to each other. Each farm actually has 4 or 5 apps in their mobile. There are many applications, and these are all actually standalone applications. That's where we come in, and that's what we are trying to do is actually have one unified layer, which is actually multi-modular, where depending on what your role in the organization, you might be on the farm, you might be in supply chain, you might be in finance. You're seeing the same set of data, which is sliced and diced based on how you want to see it. How does it actually work? We actually have a mobile app and a web app. Also integrate with most of the satellite imagery data, the weather data, weather stations. We have a middleware which actually converts all machinery data. Also, we bring all of that into one platform depending on the agribusiness's objective, and translate that into actionable insights. So we basically are 4 pillars, though today's talk is actually going to be on the sustainability and compliance module. But overall, we basically have the farm management, which is like any other farm management software, end to end from planting to harvesting. But we take it all the way to supply chain and traceability. We actually have our own ERP as well for finance and inventory. And on top of it sits the sustainability and compliance module, which is where most of my discussion is going to be today. We have already done it. We've proven real traction. Last 4 years, we've actually worked, and large companies, global companies in India and abroad are already using our platform. You can see that various categories, right from controlled farms to corporate farms. Canada, we are actually right now running a couple of pilots. One floral is one company in St. Catharines, which some of you might be familiar, where we are actually running a pilot here. And we are actually also running some pilots in US and Europe. So this is not just theory, it's something which is already being used by many organizations. And I'm happy to walk you through how we are doing that. Finally, in terms of the founding team, apart from me, I actually have my wife and co-founder, Richa. She comes from, that's where the deep agronomy knowledge comes from. We're today supported by a family office back in India in terms of our early investment. All right, that's the 2 minutes of spotlight in terms of what we do. Let's get into the main topic of discussion. So this project started back in June in partnership with Vineland as well as OCI, and the whole idea was that the model which we built in terms of carbon measurement, can it actually be ground truthed against real world data. And we actually picked up orchards primarily because there's a lot of carbon work already done on row crops, whatever across the globe, but not much is actually been talked about it, and that's typically where a lot of Ontario farms are, at least in the region where I am. I'm based out of Niagara Falls. Um, and that's where the it was a 6 month study where we actually looked at some of the ground data, put it into our platform, and then validated it against real data, right? So the problem is that agriculture has, as we all know, one of the biggest levers when it comes to climate mitigation. Soil can actually store carbon, which we know is amazing, but the problem is that we can't measure it properly. There are existing models for people who are actually from the scientific background. There is DNDC, Descent. These are actually existing carbon measurement models which are available. So they're great academically, but try explaining those to a farmers on a Tuesday morning in Niagara. It's like, just give me the soil microbiology parameters and 10 years of climate data. It's absolutely not possible, and the conversation ends very quickly. So what happens eventually? There is no measurement, no trust, no carbon programs, or no adoption, and that's the gap we went through, right? And today we basically have two extremes, when it comes to the challenge. One is that we have a lot of scientific models which are very accurate but completely impractical to use on the farms which are there. And there are simple calculators which are available, very easy to use, but not credible or validated, right? So you either get accuracy without usability or usability without credibility, and that's a dead end, right? What we ask for is that, can we build something in the middle? And that's where our platform comes in. Basically, see, sustainability data is sits on top of all the data, right? It actually starts all the way from planting till supply chain. So you can't actually measure carbon in isolation, because eventually, it's whether it's carbon inset or carbon offset, you need to actually have all sorts of data. So we captured farm data, traceability data, supply chain, and sustainability, and carbon is just one of the model, right? So, and why this matters? Because carbon, as I said, that does not sit in isolation. It depends on everything which happens on the farm. So instead of building a carbon tool or a carbon calculator, which is what is existing in the market, what we said is that, can we actually integrate? And that doesn't mean that we need to use everything which we provide as a module. If there is something which is working and not broken, we would actually integrate. So you have a great farm management tool, use that. You have a great ERP already running, use that. We will actually take data from all of it, and then actually do our computation. Why do you need a new carbon model, right? The simple answer is that, because the existing ones are actually too complicated to work in the real world. Our whole goal was that we wanted to actually work something where there is minimal inputs. Uh, you know, I feel that horticulture on the carbon space is actually comparatively ignored. We wanted to ensure that it is aligned to the Paris Accord and the IPCC alignment, and it is actually scientifically credible. And the data which actually comes from is actually MRV readiness for any kind of program, whether it is actually Vera, Climate Action Reserve, or any other sustainability program which is there. Everything needs the base MRV data. And our goal was to actually provide that, because farmers are not sitting around and waiting to feed your model. We all know they have better things to do. I'm sure Chuck would vouch that, in terms of, if I actually ask him to enter all this data, those no farmer is actually ready. So how can we actually do something where there is minimal input and it can actually work, right? And that's where our model architecture, we went through. To break it down simply, our model does three things. One is obviously carbon removal. We measure the biomass, the soil organic change. We also input the emissions, right? In terms of what is there, whether it is fuel, spray, irrigation, nitrogen usage. And the net carbon is as very simple. Carbon in minus carbon out is the net impact. So we are not reinventing science. We're just making it, usable, and in terms of how we can do that. So the validation basically was important. We after the model was developed, and Wineland was kind enough to actually give us two plots. One was actually peach and one was grapes. And we basically took these two plots and took some basic data from the farm manager, in terms of what Wineland already had, put it into our model, and then measured it against their lab tested results already available, right? So what we did is that for peach and rod, these are actually the two named plots which we actually took, which is there. Both of them were no till, which was obviously a plus, which is there because these are typical Ontario systems, right? In the sense that you find a lot of perennial crops which are there, at least in the region where I am, and they are actually better for carbon, but also very hard to model. So that's what we wanted to actually take up as a challenge. So, what did we collect as data? What data did we use? Nothing specifically exotic, which is there. The soil tests, the yield data, the fuel usage, the sprays, the irrigation. Now, this is data which most of the farms actually already have. So, we didn't actually take anything specific or go more into detail at this point in time. And this is basically the input summary which is there, right? In terms of both the plots, we took the yield data. We already knew the soil type for both the plots. There was no specific specialty fertilizers or anything used. The standard usual which the farms use. How much fuel went in, how much spray went in terms of the program, and what was the tillage practice which is there. There was no intercrop for these crops, obviously, but both plots followed what we call it as actually low disturbance management, because and which is actually in favor for us when it comes to carbon retention, which is there. So the methodology, just to actually simplify, on the carbon removal side, we basically did the biomass measurement, AGB and BGB, and then we also looked at the soil change, which is there. On the emission side, we had data in terms of fuel, nitrogen, the chemical usage as well as, and then we followed the IPCC logic in terms of measuring it. So what's the result like, right? So the result was that the variance which we for grapes, the model actually computed around 1.5 tons of carbon removal against the lab data, which was actually computed. So pretty good variance of very less than 3% in terms of the actual data, which was then validated at Vineland. And the same with peaches, where the variance was actually little higher. It was actually around 9%. But the acceptable range is generally between 10 to 20%. Bear in mind that these are actually comparatively smaller plots, so it is very obvious that the variations would be actually less. But we were pretty happy with what we actually got, because the results primarily had an acceptable range. We sit between 3 to 13%, which means that the model works. It aligns with the reality. It is usable, and that is what we wanted to actually prove, which is there. And the three big takeaways for us was that we can model carbon accurately with simple inputs, and perennial systems work very well. No till, I mean, it's nothing. It's not something which is new, that no till really matters. And this is not theory anymore. This is something which you have tested with real data. And the next step is we are in discussion with OCI and Vineland in terms of how we can actually do it with a larger study. And that's why I'm actually presenting here that based on what we've done here, if there are farms as well as agri businesses who are interested in actually studying more on this, we're happy to actually showcase. What this means for us is that farmers can measure carbon, agri businesses can report it, and there is actually, if the data is actually captured in the right way, there is actually places where you can participate in terms of program. For any kind of program participation, farm data is actually crucial. We all know that. It's not just and some of them is actually digital assets for you, for the farms which are there. We might not, today the carbon value is actually very low. It might pick up, it might not pick up. That's actually something which we cannot predict. But irrespective of whenever that happens, the baseline data and the changes and the additionality is extremely important. where you can actually prove in terms of how you improved the carbon sequestration. So what that means is that we have a baseline carbon footprint. You can participate in carbon programs, whether it is Vera, Climate Action Reserve, which are voluntary carbon markets, or for agri businesses, it could be actually even inset. And this is where we've seen most of the traction. We worked with a World Bank project back in Asia, and primarily we see traction more on the inset side, where it's like a winery or an orchard where they have their own farms, and then they are actually also processing where there is actually emission. For them, the path to go to carbon neutral is actually faster, helps in ESG reporting with credible claims than just a sustainability team sitting in isolation and not only talking to the farm manager at the end of the year in terms of getting data. Right. So what does that mean? What's next, which is there, right? The next steps is that we want more plots. We want to actually try this in more crops. We want to actually capture more data, right? So this was actually, I would say, a pilot condition. We want to actually go more into real this thing. We are already in talks with multiple organizations in terms of helping us support this in terms of calibration. There is demand when it comes to agri businesses. We don't directly sell to farmers, and we don't work directly with farmers. We work with agri businesses and the group of farmers which are supported by agri businesses and government. But we're more than keen to actually test the platform, because for Canada, we are still new. It's been only a year and a half, and we've just developed it, fine-tuned it, and actually tested it, which is there. And, we are today verifiable on Vera and Climate Action Reserve, as well as, gold standard, three voluntary carbon markets which exist in Europe and US. We've also taken people who are familiar with some inputs from Halos, which is the model which exists in Canada by the government of Canada, which is there. The model is actually still pretty old. They've not updated it for some time, but we did actually take the base for that. So, obviously, what we built works. It is aligning to reality and scale, and I wanted to share it with the larger group. And there is actually a detailed report which is available, which Wineland validated, and we have it. So, you can get in touch with me for that report. I wish I had more time to actually showcase the demo of the product as well. But if there is actually an opportunity, again, we'll be happy to showcase. You can meet us in Agritech Venture Forum. This is one of the events which is happening next month. I, along with Nicole from Wineland and Dave from Bio Enterprise, we are speaking in a panel. And it would be great for some of you to come and attend. And we have a booth there as well, where I'm happy to showcase the demo of the product as well. So those are my contact details in case somebody wants to get in touch. All right, I'll stop my monologue and take some questions.
Perfect. Thanks. Joe, you had your hand up first. Oh, sorry, Nevin has his hand up.
Okay. Hi, morning, Vinay. Nice to see you. Thanks for the presentation. Could you elaborate a little bit on where we are with respect to the market for carbon credits? Who's paying? What kind of demand is there? I think you developed a very comprehensive solution. Can you expand on where the market is? I'm just not current on that.
So today, the market is driven by agribusinesses, foundations, and also in certain countries, the government, which basically are gathering the group of farmers and actually aggregating the data for different purposes. So let me start with agribusiness. So a lot of food processing companies who are actually directly or indirectly connected with the farm, who are sourcing from the farm, they are either contracted or having their own estate. They want to use that as the inset data when they are actually processing their food. So basically, so that their path to carbon neutrality is actually faster, right? So that's where we are seeing the maximum demand, the carbon inset market. The carbon credit market for individual farmers, it's still at a very nascent stage. Where we have seen success, so for example, if I talk about India, the average acreage is very different from Canada. It's around 1.5 to 2 acres on an average. But there are very successful organizations who have gathered a lot of farmers together and then computing the data and then applying to project developers like Vera or Climate Action, and then paying back to the farmer. But the payback, Nevin, to be honest, is not something which farmers would work hard for today. But my our when we were working with government, the whole objective at that point in time was that whenever this picks up, okay, at that time, that day, you cannot start capturing data, because all the carbon credit programs pay on additionality, right? So just to give you a context, right, in Asia, the average organic carbon is between zero point 0.5 to 1, which is very low. So there is actually a lot of scope for additionality. Average organic carbon in Canada is actually between 4 to 5. So there is actually less scope of additionality because we actually have really good soil in a lot of those places, right? So idea is to actually ensure that this data is captured, additionality is captured, and there will come a time either for people who are procuring from you, they would need that data. The other places which is actually working a lot in US, though I'm personally not a great proponent of, is the offset market, where you're just paying for a farm and using that data to offset what you're not doing right? So I'm personally, I'm not actually a great proponent of it, but that's where a lot of the work is actually happening. Microsoft, Google, they're actually buying a lot of carbon credits because they have a huge data center to actually burn, right? But I personally feel that agribusinesses will pick up. A lot of the ESG reporting is going to get mandated. A lot of public listed companies, it has actually become mandatory to report on ESG. When that happens, this kind of data will actually become more and more important.
Perfect. Does anybody else have any questions for Vinay? Okay, so thank you for joining us today, Vinay, and sharing your presentation. If anybody has any follow-up questions that you want to chat offline, feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn. Marzan, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Vinay, thank you for the presentation. A quick question. You mentioned that the most of your business model is that you have you do the agreement with the agribusiness, and you don't do the agreement with the farms directly. My question is that who owns the data that being collected? Is it the agribusiness? Is it Verdnt, your organization?
No, it's complete. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And does the farmer have access to this data later on if they want to use it for, other uses, secondary uses, input it into AI, all of that? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's primarily the relationship which we have with our banks. It's very similar to that. We don't own the data. We are actually a data processor. So it's owned by the agribusiness which pays for it. And different agribusinesses have different agreements with the farmers, right, in terms of how to use the data. So that's an agreement between. So our solution actually has a consent on the mobile app side on the farmer, and the agribusiness decides on how to consent the data. So today, the data is owned by the agribusiness, and whether they want to share it with the farmer or not, it's an agreement between agribusiness and the farmer, which is there. From our perspective, it's actually multi-tenancy data. You and me, we both are actually RBC customers, but you can't see my data, I can't see your data, but we are both on the same data center. So we follow the same logic. It's a multi-tenancy architecture, and we don't own any data, and we don't actually, our model is also not monetizing the data. So we treat ourselves very similar to, say, an ERP service provider, which actually has financial data. Say a Salesforce or an Oracle, they actually have multiple public listed companies having financial data, which is obviously, and I keep advocating this thing. I know that farmers are very finicky about their customer data, but I always educate them with this thing that there are public listed companies who have actually financial data on their SaaS platforms, which, if it is actually leaked, is actually far more dangerous than what's there on the farm, right? From that perspective. But it's an education drive. People are actually slowly and steadily getting more and more. And especially for carbon, Marzan, it can only benefit if group of farmers come together. Individually, it will never benefit, because today we are talking about what, $8 to $10 a ton, and which is actually really not going to, excite any farmer which is there. But when group of farmers come together, there is an additional income as well as a future digital asset which is created. But to answer your question, we don't store any data. It's actually between the agribusiness and the farmer.
Thank you.
Is there any government in the world that you're working with that wants to pay you just to audit over a 5-year plan to get a baseline to understand where they are for information decision-making purposes, so then they can decide what really is feasible before they put government policies in place, which might be totally unworkable? So,
yep. Absolutely, David, and that's where my biggest frustration as a Canadian is. It's actually down south. There's a GREET model, 45Z, which was announced in Big Beautiful Bill. The GREET model basically compensates corn farmers, which is being actually supplied for renewable fuel, and they pay additional. Government pays additional for the bushels and the conversions. There is a carbon intensity score, which is actually obviously the model is very US specific. It's called the GREET model. And the government is actually paying those farmers. There are many providers which actually pay it. And in fact, there are a lot of Canadian farmers who also participate in that because it's actually for US and Canada both. But it's paid by the Canadian government. So if Canada farms are actually supplying this to for renewable fuel feedstock, which is there, they are also paid. So US is doing it. They brought it into the main policy and they've been working on it. I mean, this is way before Trump itself. It's called the 45Z tax credit. And it's the GREET model. The model is actually GREET. So there are various carbon measurement models. The model which they work on is actually GREET. And that is what we need to actually bring in the sense that the data captured, how that can be monetized. And that's why there is actually encouragement for farmers to capture data also. The digital adoption there in Midwest, I actually attended one of the conferences there, is actually much more because they sign up for this program, 45Z program, which actually gives them tax credit and gives me additional for the bushels which are there. And a lot of farmers from Saskatchewan, I know, that are also participating in those programs which is there. So US definitely has it. Smaller countries also have it, but I would say that the biggest program which I am familiar with is actually in the US.
Okay, any other questions before we move on? Okay, perfect. So we'll call that the end of the Q&A for our guest speaker. The next part of our agenda, just a reminder of a couple of events that are coming up. So today I'm at Waterloo RoboHub Symposium. So if you are here or planning to attend later on today, come stop by our table and happy to chat. And then did anybody attend the day here yesterday that you want to give an update on? And then a couple other ones that are coming up. As Vinay mentioned, Agri-Tech Venture Forum will be held in Toronto later on in May. I believe Joe is going, Vinay is going, a couple other people. So hopefully you'll get some good conversations there. We have our 2 demo days coming up this summer as well. We'll be announcing those days shortly. One will be in July and one will be in Innovation Farms Ontario. Will have theirs in August. And then we have Great Lakes Tech Flex in September. Same with the Canadian Outdoor Farm Show in September and the Canadian Agrobotics Council in September. So September will be a very busy month. And then Emily will be hosting their Ag Enlightened conference again in November. I don't know if there's anybody on from Emily, if you wanted to kind of give a bit of a brief overview of what to expect for that one. Okay, perfect. So next we'll just move on to the open forum. So is there anything that anybody wants to discuss or any challenges that anybody's had over the last couple of weeks? very quiet group today. Or is there any like wins or a funding that anybody has seen announced as well?
Nicole, do you want to just let people know what's going on down at Vineland? Now that if it's quiet, you may as well.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
Introduce yourself and what's going on there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole DeLong. I'm the Director of Business and Client Development at Vineland. I believe my colleague Dan Bath has also joined us here, who was primarily working with Vinay on the project that they just spoke about. So happy to see it come all together and to see some other collaborators on the call as well. But yeah, I think Joe's referring to the Critical Industrial Technologies Initiative. We're a technology development site alongside with Ontario Centres of Innovation. Hi, Rob, if you're on the call. So ultimately, what that enables is access to Vineland to validate your technology or to help support product development, whatever it is that you're, currently working on. And to leverage the infrastructure kindly supported by or owned by ARIO, Agricultural Research Innovation Ontario, and also taking advantage of the scientists that are on staff. And so if you need specific expertise in a given area that you might not have on staff, it's a really great opportunity to tap into those. And then we can put together kind of a customized project that, supports your goals. So Vinay's is a great example. I think Kate, I don't know if you want to chat about SIWA as well, or if you already have on the call previously. But, putting together a crop that's infected with a particular pathogen, which in Kate's case was Fusarium, and seeing if their technology can be an early detector for that disease so that growers can manage it before it gets out of control. So that's kind of a little bit about what we do with that program specifically. But we have fields, orchards, vineyards, greenhouse space, everything from low tech to high tech.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kate, you have your hand up, so I'll hand it over to you to kind of maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, just briefly, I think I would like to actually come and maybe do a session about the project we did with Vineland. So like Nicole said, we worked with Dan Bath and Nicole and Rose and their whole team to do a greenhouse grown bell pepper study, and we did early detection of fusarium in these peppers using computer vision, and their team helped inoculate the peppers. They helped us do the ground truthing and scoring of the peppers so that we could validate what our vision systems were seeing with actually human eyes, and we're able to develop a system from beginning to end, and that was very, very successful. And now we're able to actually talk to partners and sell the system and do this early commercialization work. So we'd love to actually come on the call and show everybody that. So thank you for mentioning that, Nicole. And I just wanted to point people's eyes to the comment that I have in this section here. We've developed our new stand count and emergence assessment tool, and we're looking for farmers or drone service providers that have stand count data in corn, soybean, or canola, and we'd like to validate our cotton stand tool in those crops in an Ontario setting. So very open to any collaborations there. Thank you very much. And Ash, I'll reach out to you on presenting the work we did with Vineland. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll chat soon about that, and we'll get you on the schedule to present. Yeah, so take a look at what Kate put in the chat, and then we'll have her on over the next couple of months to present that as well. And just a reminder, if anybody is interested in speaking, or you have somebody in your network that you think would be a good fit to come onto this group, feel free to reach out to me or to the Ag-Robotics Working Group email, and I'm happy to make that connection and kind of talk it over what that could possibly look like as well. So I'll leave it a bit of an open forum for the next couple of minutes. If there's anybody that has, Vinay, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say thanks to Dan. I didn't know Dan was actually on the call. He's instrumental in the project, and Dan and Michael were very helpful. I just saw Nicole's face, but I didn't see Dan was actually on the call. Thank you so much, Dan, for all the support.
Perfect. He was hiding off camera. Okay. Yes, again, so thank you, Vinay, for presenting and for partnering with Nicole and Dan. We love to see these collaborations on this group and really showcase the new technology that's out there. And if there's anything that you're looking for from this group, feel free to reach out and I can connect you with hopefully somebody for that as well. Is there anything that anybody wants to kind of discuss with the open forums section? Otherwise, we can make it a bit of an earlier call for today.
Maybe one topic to just get everybody thinking about. We saw it during the conference, I think it was Jim Beretta, how poorly agriculture was adapting and using AI, artificial intelligence. I think if this group's not using AI or thinking about it, we're in real trouble because I don't see any other groups really stepping up, trying to understand, how to deploy some of these innovations to agriculture. So I think if we can find some experts, some speakers, maybe it's a panel, that should be a fairly important topic that we, and Michelle probably has the answer for us. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Actually, it's funny, Joe, that you're asking this because last week I was talking with the ICET Secretariat of Quantum. This is where the lead is and where the money is. And they do these tours with various organizations on presenting the prospect of what's going on in terms of quantum. And remember, Canada is in a leading position compared to many other countries. So we have really great companies. And so just to tell you, yesterday I was with Kane and I offered to present to Kane what is happening in Canada in terms of quantum. And when you talk quantum, we talk AI, of course, and data. So Carson said that they are thinking about it, so that's good from Kane. But yeah, so we might maybe think about the presentation to that group as well.
Can you maybe follow up with me and Michelle, and let's see if we can get our heads around some experts that can present to this group.
Yeah.
And then just quit talking about it, like actually see if we can get some people engaged. And I think there's nodes of knowledge and nodes of activity.
So Lisa Lambert is one of the presenters. She's the person coordinating for the industry.
Okay.
But then you have some experts. So yes, there's a different kind of people.
Okay. I'll hunt you down.
Lisa and I, we talked. Yeah, we know.
I'll hunt you down. And if we can figure out what Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada is doing, that would be hugely helpful. So
okay. And just to tell you,
and then Kate put another name as well.
Sorry?
Oh, so I just said Kate put another name suggestion in the chat as well.
Yeah. Now there are some multiple people. The beauty with Lisa, she's coordinating. She's a coordinator. So that's why it's good to have her on board. She's always good. A super nice lady. But it's nice to have as well what's going on in the other sector. And just to tell you as well, our experts in Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, the quantum experts, we just finalized what we call the pamphlet or the path forward for agriculture sector in terms of using quantum and what is going to change over the next 15 years. It's not ready yet for publication at large, but it could be, part of a presentation in the coming months. Again, Joe, let's talk and see what's feasible.
Thanks, Michelle. Merci.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Nevin?
Yeah, just to build on your point, Joe, I will be hosting a panel at Discovery X on April 29th, specifically talking about AI adoption in the agri-food sector. Should be an interesting panel with both innovators, some producers, processors from the value chain, to give some perspective on where they've either experimented or found a fit for using artificial intelligence in their operations. Based on the brief scan we've done, adoption is low to your point, but we've got a few pioneers in the value chain that have experimented. So we'll see how the discussion goes, and perhaps we can corral one or two of my panelists in for this Friday event at some point in May.
That's great. Thanks, Nevin. Good job.
Perfect. Yeah. Vinay, you had a question?
Yeah, no, Joe, I was just saying that the 6th and 7th session, on 6th, there is actually again an AI panel with real world examples in the Agri-Tech Venture Forum. So anybody who's attending it, maybe there are some panelists, there's some big names from US and Canada who are actually speaking there. So, and this time the Agtech Venture Forum, one of the reasons which is better is that they're actually bringing in customers and people who have already used the technology, speaking on it, rather than actually being more, theoretical and in terms of promise. So I think there would be, some opportunities to collaborate there as well in terms of getting some of those. I will also try to get some of those in the panel to speak, if they are actually ready. Yeah.
Yeah, I think let's just funnel all the ideas through Ashley, and then she can kind of coordinate when we can. This isn't going away, and so it's so big and strategic, and you see the dollars being invested around the world. Dan, are you still on?
Yeah, he is.
Wouldn't mind his comment as well, because he's on the chip side, and I know I saw him on earlier, so I don't know. I know it's early there, Dan, but wouldn't mind catching up.
Well, I'm online and I'm awake. Anyway, there's really when you talk about AI, in my mind, it's really multiple conversations. As Vinay's talking about, there's the whole data management and there's the decision making and analytics. That's all kind of data center oriented, cloud oriented. It's collecting data, bringing the data together, and using data to be more intelligent in agriculture. That's one whole side of AI. And it has data protection issues, security, ownership, as Nevin and others have pointed out. The other side is more what Chuck does, which is more in the how do we get more automation into our equipment, into our usage in the field. It's more labor oriented. And then you have the third phase of AI, and it's kind of the sustainability, but also the inputs, the reduction in inputs. You have the whole focus on new techniques, not just let me run the tractor instead of somebody else, but how do I get like a laser to do work, or so there's a development side of AI. So when I agree, Joe, the panel sessions are great. And I think the public is becoming more and more aware of these different modes of applying AI and how they really, they're quite different. In the AI community, we talk about physical AI, and that's what we're saying is the AI that's driving your tractor, or the AI that's identifying weeds and planting, those physical things, versus generative AI, which is I've got all this data, I'm bringing it together. Guys like Vinay are making it useful and productive, but that has less to do with equipment. It has more to do with just pure data. So that's what I think is the industry is trying to sort it all out. We now have a couple of vendors that are building platforms, hardware for the production side, the equipment people. And this is the transition, what you're seeing today. The last 5 years have all been proof of concept. When you hear complaints about ChatGPT, hallucinations, scraping the appropriate data ownership, we've gone through all that proof of concept.
So hallucinations, I've heard that term probably half a dozen times the last couple of weeks. Can you what the heck are you talking about?
Well, everything's predicated on the data you use for AI, right? AI is the number one thing is where is the data from? How do I use that data? I compare it to brainwashing. If I was to tell you, Joe, that the sky is orange, it's not blue, it's orange, Joe, and you got to believe it's orange. Somebody asks you a question, you say, "Isn't it a beautiful day? Look how orange the sky is today." Same thing in AI. If I inject data that is wrong or inaccurate or incomplete, well, software in AI is just deterministic. It just acts on the data. So hallucinations are generally because the data has been corrupted or it has been created inappropriately or the source of the data. It's again, it's when that one person is saying something and you find it really odd. That's what's going on because we expect it to be 100% accurate, right? And we expect that about everything we do. And in AI, it's not there yet. We don't have that 100% accuracy. So hallucination is when the output of the AI is something that you're just like, that's completely outrageous. And you can always trace it back to, well, that was a data set problem. So we're still in the mode and the proof of concept of getting the data right, but we're moving more to the proof, to the stage of optimization. It's one thing to, to have a tractor that runs, or carbon robotics is carrying around, foot lockers full of NVIDIA hardware. Well, we got to get that down to where, if we're going to electrify those vehicles, if we're going to have return on investments that are less than 10 years, we have to optimize the software and the hardware. And that's where we're at today. But my main point is AI is not one thing. I compare it to I compare it to transportation. Is it a skateboard or is it an airplane? They're both transportation, but they're very, very different. And the same thing here in AI. You have to stop using AI as a term and start using it as a
define it more appropriately.
Exactly.
Ian, you have your hand up.
So just on that premise, I think we're in an environment now where everybody's talked about AI and you're embarrassed if you don't admit that you know about AI. So you nod your head up and down and say, yes, that works. But in fact, people don't know. And I'm working on a U of G project with some guys that are big into AI, and because they know AI, they're not explaining it well to the producers that they're trying to reach and stuff like that. I think that is a huge language problem, and if we don't sort it out, it's going to come back to haunt us. So, like the last gentleman said, all these different components we throw them all together as AI and expect everybody to understand it. And I think we have to realize that they don't. And so, how do we step back from that to catch up people so that when we talk to them, they're not deer in the headlights?
Yeah, I agree with that, and my approach to that is to talk about the goal of the AI or the outcome that you're expecting. What are you using it for? What am I trying to, focus in? I'm trying to reduce the amount of inputs that I'm using for weed control. I'm trying to reduce the number of labor in the field, or I'm trying to make better decisions by aggregating all the data. So my answer to your point is don't use the broad term AI. Use AI for this, or AI is being used for that. It clarifies it in the person's head because it becomes a visual of, oh, I get it. You're trying to help me. Chuck posted something on LinkedIn yesterday about weeding and the catch line was, wow, we did as well, or and sometimes we were more impressive than manual labor doing the same task with the same equipment. So we finally have gotten to, wow, we did it as well as a person. That's incredibly encouraging because we haven't been able to do that for 5 years. So that's my answer, Ian, is that it always have to speak in the application or the expected use of it, not just hey, AI, it's a thing. Well, that's like saying transportation again. I need to fly to Toronto versus I'm going to ride my bike down to the grocery store. So keep those things in, and education will come. I admire what you're doing in and all the groups in AI. Clarity is important, and any new technology takes a while to adopt. I mean, I just think it's something you continue to be evangelists about, and the market will come with it, and it's going to be. I think 5 years from now, this will be an interesting conversation.
I agree. I think we have time for one more question. Anne Michelle, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you. I just only to thank everyone. I think it's great comments that you provided. And I want to remind everyone to be cautious when in whatever you're going to do in terms of AI or your data. I appreciate the question before, who owns the data and those kind of thing. Because this is one of the main concerns these days in the government, where we're looking, remember, we have spent millions and millions every year to create this data with farmers and producers. And now we are saying, okay, we are going to put them on the cloud. Really, this, I'm talking really basically, practically what we do. And say in the cloud is accessible by competitive companies or countries. The geopolitics of these days is you have to be cautious. Really, where is your data? Make sure you keep it and you are the owner and you are the only one who can play with that data, because that data, once compiled with others in terms under the AI tool, will leave your control, and you don't know what's going to be used and how it's going to be used. And so we are very, very attentive to that kind of I would say situation these days. We don't have a perfect solution. And I would be happy to talk to you as well, Mr. Gian Canusis. I don't know how to say that, your name, sorry. But anyway, that's interesting. Voilà.
Okay, no, I think that's a great reminder and to close out there. And David, there was put a comment in there too. It's a great opportunity for non-government and government to provide education on egg users too. So that could be a space that we can explore as well. So I think we're going to close out the meeting for today. With that, so great conversation around AI. If anybody has ideas for the panel, send them to myself directly, and then I'll connect a couple people together for that, and Joe and I can take a look at those. So thank you for joining. Next week, we have a couple of our research proposals presenting on what they will be doing this upcoming growing season. So I look forward to hearing about that and announcing those to this group as well. So enjoy your day, and we'll meet again next Friday. Thank you.